Oh, I'm live. What a treat. What does the word guru mean? The guru is not somebody who's hustling you or hassling you. The guru is a teacher. And I don't remember the day, but I was lucky enough to meet Anthony a while ago. And it's not because he's just a handsomer, taller, smarter version of me. It's not just because he can wear a beard and I can't. It's because deep in his soul, Anthony is a guru, a teacher, somebody who lights things up. And the first chance I had to come up with an excuse to do this with him, I took it. So here he is. Here's what he's about. And we're going to take your questions. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to talk about the future, the past, the present. We're going to talk about hierarchies. And I can't believe I'm lucky enough to be on this call with him. How are you, sir?
I'm wonderful. It's good to see you. Am I the last stop on your book tour?
You are the most important stop of the day. I'm going to tell you that.
I will tell you that hard.
The idea of book tours is completely shifted. I was in the Barnes & Noble on Union Square yesterday, one of the biggest bookstores in America. They had exactly 4 copies of my book. Now, that would be good news if they used to have 40 copies, but they didn't used to have 40 copies. They used to have 4 copies. Now they have none because the best way I could think of to get them to order more was I bought them all. Anyway, if you got a question, post it in the comments section. Anthony, what's going on? Tell us what you're working on. Tell us what's important.
I'm working on book number 6 called The Negativity Fast, because you might notice that post-pandemic, people are kind of grouchy, a little bit ruffled. And I think that we need to do something to help people recognize this is all we've got, and you have to find a way to be positive and do good work. So that's what I think is most important.
And that's different than the way some folks would like to caricature a sales professional. But I think your work has consistently said the thing you think of when you think of sales isn't what sales is.
Yeah, what I think about sales is that it's not something that you're doing to someone, you're doing it for someone and with someone. And when you get that part right and you're contributing and you're helping people solve big problems, that's just pure joy for me. And the people that understand this, they know that too.
Yes, beautifully.
We have something backwards here, though, because when we came on, it said that you were the host. But I feel like I should be the host. I mean, I'm going to be asking you the question. So I would like to ask you if I could be the host.
Okay, you're the host. What do I have to do?
You have to answer questions. So
okay.
First, I have to say this is the book, but we're not going to pitch the book. We're going to talk about work, and we're going to talk about a number of things. First, I have to tell you I love all of your books, but the 2 books that are 17 pounds are hernia. I mean, that's a hernia concern there for most of us. They probably don't know what this is, but these books are gigantic. It's a collection. All of your books are wonderful. Tribes is wonderful. Linchpin, like everything. This is marketing. But I am particularly fond of this book. I think it is your best book. On Amazon, people say, this is your Magnus Opum. And I'm like, number 1, number 7, like how many of these? You've got a lot of these things. So I want to talk about work. So my view of you is, for as long as I've been aware of you, your work has been documenting the end of the industrial age. That's my perception of this. And what you've been doing all this time is, I'm going to say, empowering people and causing them to liberate themselves from what we've had for 100+ years. So my first thing for you is, how do you think about your body of work before you get to this book? Because this is book, I think, is it 21?
Give or take.
Somewhere, yeah.
I thought it was pretty cool one day when I realized I had a body of work. And because when I was a book packager, the idea was to do a book that a publisher would publish and someone would buy, but it didn't have to rhyme with the one that came before because my name wasn't on the cover of most of them. But about 3 books after Permission Marketing, I thought, oh, these need to rhyme with each other. And there's an arc of things that I am standing for here. And I think what happened was the timing for me was fortuitous in that the world shifted more dramatically than it had in 100 years, starting with the death of mass marketing, and then the death of mass production, and then the death of mass cultural institutions. And I wanted to narrate for people that this was an opportunity, not a threat. Because even if it's a threat, where are you going to go? Which other planet is available to you? So if it's an opportunity, how can we make this better? And so, yeah, that's what it is. The difference with this new book is this is the one that's really personal. It was prompted by personal experiences, and it was written for people I love. And so if it resonates with people, that's great. But I really wrote it for a few dozen people who needed to hear it. And I needed to share it with the world because I thought it might resonate with them too.
One of the things that I want to talk to you about is that there are two types of hierarchies in nature. So one is called a dominator hierarchy, which you know, and then the other one is called a growth hierarchy. And so what I would like to say about this work is it's dismantling dominator hierarchies. That's where we're using fear, we're using compliance, we're using threats, we're using everything that we can to have people do something. And then a growth hierarchy is, I think, what's in this book. I would say this is as good of a guide as that you're ever going to have as to remove those structures and replace them with something else. So I think that's what this is. What do you think managers have to do to start treating people different in business? Because this is a legacy thing. I think that people think that they're supposed to do what their manager did, and it just continues on until somebody decides to make a change.
There are managers who should keep managing. If you get on an airplane, I think that you want that airplane to be maintained strictly by the book, and you don't want anybody to take initiative. The book is the book, and you want to have a reliable, highly surveilled method of having confidence about where you're going. If you work in an organization that has to deal with change in the world, that is not going to help you because the turbulence is different tomorrow than it was yesterday. So you're probably not a manager all the time. You are probably a leader. And you might have the authority of a manager, give or take. But when you're leading, you can't use that authority because leading is voluntary. Leading says, I'm going over there to do something that might not work. Who wants to come? And if we can create the conditions where people choose to follow us, then we are doing the growth hierarchy, not the other one. And so one of the things that people like you and I who come from a sales background have is in almost all the world, in almost all situations, selling is a voluntary transaction.
Yes.
You cannot force someone to buy something from you. So you must have empathy and you must show up. Now, if you're good at it, you will make a profit. So the point of being a good salesperson is not that you're giving stuff away, it's that you're opening the door to help people get what they want.
Right.
And so we're trying to take that mindset and move it in lots of places. Because guess what? Everyone who's listening to this has to work, but you don't have to work at what you're doing now, which means that your work is voluntary. And anybody who's leading has to engage you in enrolling in that.
That is one of my questions about enrollment. So some time ago, maybe a year ago, I sent you an email about the rules for enrollment. I don't know if you remember that. It was a long time ago, but you actually wrote a post the next day on enrollment, and I asked you if you could do it by noon, and you did it by 24 hours, so it was up a day later. What do you use to describe the difference between somebody who's compliant and when you enroll them? Like what has to happen for a leader to actually get somebody, let's say, non-compliant but fully committed? Like those are two very, very different people.
Yes. So it's one of those words like sanction that means the opposite of itself. So if you are enrolled in public school, it's because it's against the law to not go to school. You have to be there. If you are enrolled in a class in pottery, you are voluntarily choosing to show up. And so what we're trying to describe in enrollment is simple. The easiest way to make a change happen, the easiest way to make a sale is to help people get what they wanted all along, not to change what they want. And so when we enroll people, what we're saying is this feeling, this change, this impact we're trying to make, is this what you want to? Let's go do this together. If that's the case, you don't have to take attendance. You don't have to need a time clock because the people are there because they want to be there. The difference between work and art is artists say, how can I do another one? And workers say, how little can I get away with?
Yeah. When Chat GPT came out, you responded in a very interesting way from my perspective. And you were kind of like, I'm gonna attribute this to you, and you can argue that's not true. I think you shrugged. I mean, it was kind of like, yeah, of course. How did you process that? Because it seems to me that you would have something to say about this, but you're like, it's here, okay, and that was about the gist of it.
Well, I've written a bunch of posts about this. On one hand, I've been expecting it since I took a PhD level class in artificial intelligence in 1983 and read a lot of science fiction and worked with Isaac Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke. This has been the way I thought the world was going to be for a very long time.
Yeah.
So I wasn't aghast at it. I was just thrilled that it happened while I was still sentient. But I've also written that this is the biggest change in the world since electricity.
Yeah.
And before electricity, when electricity was first coming, people were saying, but it's not going to affect me. Like last night, I was having a cup of tea with a radiologist who's fairly well known. And I said to him, so what's the deal with AI being able to read x-rays better than radiologists? Because I had heard that. He said, that's completely false. It's never going to happen, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I'm going to have to go correct myself. And I went on my phone on my way out, and I found a peer-reviewed paper that showed it already can, right? Not every x-ray, but it's early days. So what AI is going to do is two things that people aren't paying attention to. One is it's always on, and two, it's really cheap. And every time we have something that's always on and really cheap, there's a lot of it. And that means that every time we touch a thing, it will be smarter than we expect. And so in the case of an x-ray, no, you probably still need a radiologist, but you'll put your hand in the x-ray machine, and the x-ray machine, before the radiologist does anything, will tell the tech something about what just happened. Well, multiply that by the coffee maker, your car, the toilet, every single item in your life, including your therapist. Either we work for the AI or the AI works for us. It's that simple.
So for my time in staffing, which was most of my life, has been in temporary staffing. So I know a lot about this, but what I know is that when machines come in, you need fewer people. And that was fine for a lot of white collar people when that was happening to blue collar people. Okay. Well, now we're coming after white collar. So with this work removed, I mean, all of the stuff that can be automated and all the things that we can do without having to have a human being, what's the opportunity for human beings now? Because I think people are afraid when things like this happen, but there's always something else available for people to do that will be greater value creation, in my opinion. So what is the advantage here for human beings now that they may be freed from some of this task work that doesn't really create value?
Okay, so it might make people feel better to understand that in my lifetime on Earth, we have created more than 5 billion jobs. We have created 5 billion jobs for people while creating the internet, computers, and robots. Where did those 5 billion jobs come from? They came from the fact that when you start mechanizing things and you free up people, some of those people go do something that creates new jobs and new value. If we think about a simple non-technical thing like the music business, how many people used to be required for Bob Dylan to make a song that could be heard by a lot of people? The A&R people, the engineering people, the packaging people, the shipping people, the people at Sam Goody's, the people at the program, blah, 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 blah. Now, Bob Dylan can make a song on Tuesday, put it on streaming, and on Wednesday, it's actually his first chart-topping song in 40 years or whatever it is. So what that means is all those people don't have a job anymore, except all those people can now create value in a different way because you don't need that many people to create value. And so we're getting closer to the marketplace. Does that mean everything is going to be easy? No, everything's going to be really hard and confusing, but it means you cannot wish for the old days, because everything today is as normal as it is ever going to be again. Tomorrow is going to be weirder than today.
I want to tell you a quick story and just get your take on this. And I have a question at the end of it. At one point in staffing, I had hundreds of people take a survey on the assignments that they were working right now. And I looked at the assessments that they gave of the company and how they were treated,
Right?
the pay rates, and the retention. So those were the things that I looked at. I looked at all of these. And it turns out that the lowest paying company that we had a survey on had the best assessments and the greatest retention. And then the highest paying company had the worst retention and the worst assessments, even though they were paying, I'm going to say, something like $4,000 or $5,000 more a year, and still losing all of their people. Why do we think that money is the only reason that people work? Why do we do that? Because they think it's like, if I just give them more money, then everything will be okay. And it's not okay. And they end up with terrible retention and lots of problems that they have to deal with.
It is possible to pay people well and still have them love what they do. But usually when you pay people extra, you are turning it into a transaction, and you're saying, now I am off the hook to create meaning. I am off the hook for all of the human interactions. I mean, we could imagine the same thing happening with dating, right? That if you start paying the person you are with, something is going to change in the way that you have a relationship with that person. We need to have a transaction around money in order to put a roof over our heads and to feed our families. And all other things being equal, people usually prefer to get paid more. However, all other things aren't equal.
Right.
And the story we tell ourselves and the stories bosses tell, the casual brutality of the way billionaires treat people just because they can, right? That people don't want to be bought and sold. People want to count. They want to seek meaning. And Viktor Frankl's work, you were talking about Adler before we got on the call, but Viktor Frankl was one of the pioneers of Austrian psychotherapy, along with Freud, Adler, and others. And he said, it's not about status and it's not about sex. It's about meaning,
right?
Logotherapy. And meaning doesn't mean that you have to be in the business of making life-saving vaccines. You can have meaning running a small coffee shop, as long as you are making a change happen for people who are enrolled in the journey.
The company that had the worst assessment, the best line on the survey said, working here is like a prison matched with a kindercare. I mean, that was the survey. That was not a compliment in any way. And I had to share that with them and say, this is what people say about you.
And I'm sure their instinct is, well, we're going to have to pay them more.
Yeah.
Because so the survey I did in the book, and we're going to start wrapping this up in a minute. So if anyone has a question, please do post it. The survey that I did in the book, I asked people what about the best job they ever had, and I gave them 14 choices. But what I did was I made it so that some of the choices were what I thought bosses would pick. I got paid a lot. I didn't get fired. I got to tell people what to do. Those are the three things bosses in the industry mostly turn the dials on, right? We're not getting, someone's going to quit their job. Okay, give them a raise, give them a promotion, and don't fire them. They'll stay. But no one picked those three things. Because if we are privileged enough to have a job where you get to watch someone like Anthony talk on YouTube instead of being sitting there digging ditches, then we're looking for meaning, right? So last link I want to show people, because you stuck with us for a little bit here. If you go to seth.blog/door prizes, I'm going to give away one of the 18-pound books. I only have a few left in my garage. So go ahead. It's only available to people in the United States. It's not my fault. It's the Postal Service's fault. And here we go. Oscar, I'm not even going to read it. You've just done such a good job of commenting here today. It's a question for Seth. What about people who really need money to survive? How can they even think of working for something significant when they are taking care of the most basic needs of the Maslow pyramid? This is a great question because I am a child of privilege and I live in a country filled with privilege. I have been to lots of places where that is not true. And when I was in a small village farm, there are many smallhold farmers in the world, perhaps a billion. And what that means is they grow enough food to feed their family, and that's it. If there is one bad rainstorm, people are going to go hungry. This is about as low in the pyramid, as long as you're not doing bondage and slavery. This is about as low as you can get as a human. And going door to door with a seed company, talking to the farmers about this, what I discovered is this. There were two farmers who lived right next door to each other. And one farmer did what his parents and his grandparents and grandparents did. He grew corn, and at the end of each season, saved some of the corn and planted it the next year. That's called farm saved seed. His next door neighbor, Lucy, figured out how to get the $30 she needed to buy a bag of hybridized seed, not GMO, but hybridized seed designed to grow more productively. That $30 paid for itself 100 times over because the corn was so much more productive. In the next 3 years, Lucy earned enough money from her corn planting to send all 9 of her kids to private school, start a tree farm, buy a taxi, and become a millionaire in Kenyan shillings. And talking to the two of them next door to each other, both of them needed to make money to live. One of them found meaning. And when you talk to Lucy about what the good things that had happened to her meant, first thing is she lit up as a mom because she was taking care of her kids. She never mentioned the million shillings in a shoebox. What she talked about was the fact that she had accomplished something. So yeah, I have a lot. A lot of us have a lot. Now what are you going to do with it? And that's the magic of Anthony's new book, which is here's the world. We live in it. What are you going to do with it?
Thank you for, your leadership. Thank you for your friendship. And thank you for being my role model. I know that you had to make our names there because people would confuse us, right?
I hope they do. Every time I get confused for you, I feel good.
I need to get some better glasses, I think. That's it.
We're working on it. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Go make a ruckus. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.